Hello my dear viewers, today we're gonna take a look at the history of Baltics and Poland. What a terrible place to live in. As you can see, I'm updating my map all the time, actually every video I make, because I cannot choose the one that's actually good. So I'm just picking it and changing them, and I think I'll do that forever. Without further ado, let's jump into the video proper. As you can see here, we have a map without rivers, without anything. It's just a flat white map of Baltic states. So let's add some mountains into the thing, and you can see that the only mountains are in Poland. Who would have guessed that the tallest mountain in Lithuania is like 50 meters tall? And some of you probably already know that their name is Carpathians, because you watched my video or you already know geography. As you can see now, we got a lot of rivers, but most of them come actually from mountains in Russia instead of Carpathians, such as in the Baltic states. But well, we cannot see them here, so I'm just gonna move on. And the rivers worth mentioning, of course, are Oda and Vistula, and the only biggest one situated in the Baltic states that is worth mentioning is called Dauga. Who names river like that? Oh wait, I just found pronunciation. Awuga. There it is. Since we have rivers and mountains, let's update our map to something more green so we can see the great European plain. Now that looks much better, even if you can't tell what you are looking at. I wanted to start this with an earlier date, but I think this one fits as well. Let's start this with a controversial one so we can get all the Baltics out of this video. The Proto-Balts. At this time and moment, the Proto-Baltics are not separated into Lithuanians, Prussians, Latvians, or Vatigalians, or whatever you can imagine, but they are mostly one group, separated into many tribes. Just the same way as the Slavs were when they started migrating into the west or south. Don't worry, soon they will develop their own cultures and they'll become, their own separate entities instead of being just Proto-Balts. Next one on our list are Estonians. And here's a tricky one because we don't really know if Estonians were at the time called Estonians, or was it the Proto-Finnic people, or was it some split of the Chudics? Yeah, Chuds from Russia that moved into the region. So I'm just gonna brush them off as Estonians. Next one are Dacians. Yes, there were Dacians in Poland who didn't really do much and quickly disappeared after the Germans started moving on. So I'm just gonna move on to the Celts because they are here as well and they will stay for a long time as well. And I mean long time that they will disappear by 30 or 50 AD or maybe even earlier. Least and last we have East Germanic group, which will soon dominate the entire Poland and then will be replaced by the Slavs because of reasons. And actually we can name those groups because they survived long enough to be noted by the Romans. Okay, let me just go through them very quickly so we don't have to waste time on them too much. First we have Rugi, then we have Lemovi, Gufongi, or Gufoni, which are just Goths or Proto-Goths. Then we have Helveconi, Burgundians, Proto-Vandals, Sictrians, and Basranians. Oh yeah, and the Nahravalli, which are something. I don't know what they are, to be honest. I think they are just East Germanic and that's it. I must tell you guys that I didn't tell you about all the tribes in the region. I mostly told you about the biggest ones, and that's why Vandals are just two big groups, because there was a lot of them, and there was a lot of smaller Germanic groups in the region, but I don't want to waste your and my time talking about them because they are very just forgettable. They did nothing. They just exist, and that's it. So let's move on. Imagine that nothing happens for another 150 years, and to be honest, you don't have to imagine because, yeah, nothing happened. But in reality, Germanics were on the move like 100 years from 300 BC, and they started moving eastwards, and the East Germanics were the most expansionist group, well, of all the Germanics, to be honest, because Central Germans were just staying in Germany still and didn't want to expand into the Celts. But in the 150 BC, of course we are assuming this, and maybe we found pottery here and there, so there you have that evidence as well, that the Germanic tribes started moving eastwards, and well, Basrani, because they will be in that region, destroyed the Dacians. Dacians are no more. They killed a lot of Celts as well, they assimilated them, and there is a big problem problem because are Besrani actually Celts or Germans? Maybe they started as Germans and then become Celtic because they absorbed so many Celts during their conquests, or they just had a sizable Celtic population. Yeah, that's pretty complicated. Also, we can see that the Rugi left the region for central Germany. The Slemovi were pushed more to the west, and what came out of the territory of Lemovi were Goths. In the upcoming years, maybe 50 or another 100 years from now, we can see that Vandals and Nahravali pushed onto the Celts and started destroying them, and we're gonna see a slow decline of the Celts. Yes, and it's speculative because we don't really know when it happened. Also, you can see that at the same time the Vandals and Nahravali were pushing onto the Celts, we can see emergence of two new groups, Gepids and Quadi. I know, guys, I know, it's fucking messed up what is going here, but that's just barbaric mapping, bro. It's just EU4 players trying to have fun, and it's disgusting. We can also see the emergence of new groups in the Baltics, that is Estians, Sudovians, Galindians, and Profinians. Profinians, Galindians are, to be honest, the same thing, so don't worry about it. Also, no, they weren't singular kingdoms, they were small tribes, but because it's too early to show how they looked, I'm just going to show them like that because I'm lazy. So yeah, you might think they are like one united entity, but nope, they are just small-ass tribes, but I just show them as one big group. Okay, let's now jump to the year 180. We can see an emergence of a new group in Poland. Also, we can see that a lot of Germanics started moving out of the region. And the name of this group is Vendi, or Vendai. Yeah, I just pulled up my ladder right there, bro. What are you gonna do? And the problem with Vends is that they were Baltic. They are the one of the first groups coming out of modern-day Kaliningrad, and they were Baltic. 100% fucking Baltic. There's no way they were Slavic in the Prussia. There's no way. So something must have happened to make them Slavic when they ventured into Belarus. That was Finnic? Yeah, it's weird, but bear with me, they are Slavs now. Take it at face value. In 140s, Romans can hear echoes of violence coming from the Danube or beyond the Rhine because they're gonna be soon invaded as well, because one group of Eastern Germanics decided to move southwards, and those Germanics were called Goths. Also, Rugi decided to push into their old territory and claim it for themselves, which also might have started a domino effect with the Lemovi, who pushed the Goths, Goths pushed the Sictrians pushed the Gepids, and so on. But those are speculations, so take it with a grain of salt. In the upcoming decades, we can see that the Goths moved more into the east and starting settling in the area, that is modern-day Ukraine and Romania. By the 200 AD, Goths would stop in western Ukraine and start settling there, as I said. Also, Sictri would join them up, and they would live there for a pretty long time. Also, the ancestors of Prussians, of course Baltic Prussians, started solidifying themselves in the area, and of course the Yachvingians were also in Poland by this time. We can also see that the Lemovi own a lot of territory, Rugi also holding to what they can, and Burgundians are leaving towards the central Germany. Also, Vandalic tribes are still in the area, they are holding strong and firm because they are probably the biggest group in the area. If they didn't really leave the area towards Africa or just towards the Roman Empire, we would probably have a modern-day Poland called Vandalia or something like that, which I think is big LARP, and I would love to see, because half of Europe is nowadays occupied by Slavs, and that's a bit boring. Oh well, could have been always worse. In 220s, Goths definitely 100% leave towards the Ukraine, they're settled in there, and they're gone off our map. We are not concerned with them anymore, they are a goner. And the land was resettled probably by Slavs from modern-day Ukraine or Belarus. Also, I am sad to announce that we have to jump a lot again in timeline again, because we are jumping into the year 395 with the split of Roman Empire. So you might ask why this far into the timeline? Because Romans had a 3rd century crisis, they weren't writing about their frontiers, but what was going on in the empire, there was lack of resources and such things. So here we are, at the split of Roman Empire. And we can see that our beloved Poland is colonized by a certain group of people that are responsible for the name of that place nowadays. Although they weren't called Poles yet because they were still called Proto-Slavs. And that is because the split didn't happen yet. And if a Slav from Ukraine wanted to speak to a Slav from Poland, they would understand each other almost perfectly. Also, we can see that Germans are still holding firm into Poland. That is, Lemovi, Rugi, Nahra Valley, and Kwari are still holding strong to their territories against the Poles. But because of the major Vandal group left towards the Macromani lands, we can see that they pushed deeply into the territory. I'm not gonna lie to you, but this probably didn't happen at this time because Slavs were probably still in the area I was depicting them in like 200s. And why is that? Because probably the Huns helped clean up the area from them. And you might say that Slavs are big and strong and scary, but they've been on the border with the Germans for so long, and they still they didn't try to expanding in them through the war, but through them leaving. That's how they appeared in Poland. The Vandals left or other groups left. Slavs move in. They never fought them directly, really. So I guess they aren't so scary after all. Something tells me that even after the Huns left, it was still hard for Slavs to push into those areas, such as Bohemia or Slovakia. Slovakia actually survived the longest because it's a mountainous terrain and it's hard to control. So that's why Slavs actually had a problem with pushing into that territory. In 440s, the Slavs started moving even further into the, Western Europe. And there is a big motion that is pushing them, and those are the Huns. Huns didn't really went after the Slavs. I think the Slavs pretty much were subjugated pretty quickly. Also probably very early on by the Huns. That might have happened in 300s or early 400s because of the nobility, and of course until then were starting to become more aggressive towards their neighbors. So let's jump few years in future so we can see that Slavs started splintering into actual groups that we can name. Amazing, right? No, it's not, because I have to make the video longer. And we can also see that the Huns appeared on our beautiful map. But the reality is, all those tribes and half of Baltics are controlled by the Huns. All of them pay them tribute or just acknowledge them as their overlords. Okay, I think I should name those Slavic tribes or Slavic culture groups because probably the number of tribes was bigger. So let's start from the coast of Baltic Sea, with our first group being the Pomeranians. Those two blobs bordering the lands are Silesians and Polans, and those two big main groups are Vistulans and Mazovians. Sadly, but we have to jump in time again because nobody knows what happened in those times in there. I sure do love speculative history, man. And we are jumping into the year 500 AD. We can see that a lot have changed, and that is, the Germanics are gone. There's no more of them in Poland. They are gone. Except the Quadi owning a bit of this and that in Poland, but that's about it. Also, you can see the modernist painting up in the Baltic states because I decided it's the time to show up the tribes that were inhabiting the areas, probably. So I am going to name all those groups that were living in there. Warning for you all that Estonia is gonna be a one big guy because there is a lot of them. And imagine if I just try to put all of those little guys in there. It will look horrendous. So there's gonna be a one Estonian guy, but I'm gonna name those groups anyway for you. Okay, let's start from Estonia and let's go through those groups pretty quickly because there is a lot of them. I'm not gonna try to pronounce these names because I guess nobody really cares about the history of Estonia and didn't fucking translate those tribes into English. So I'm not gonna butcher the names, I'm just gonna show you this. And here you go, Estonia, great. Let's jump to the other tribes. That is in Latvia. And the rest of those Latvian tribes are Latgalians, Selonians, Semigalians, Curonians, and a bit more Lithuanians because they started moving into the center of the Baltics. In the upcoming years, those Slavic tribes would disintegrate into smaller tribes and and same is for the Balts. But I'm gonna just show you the Poles falling apart because I'm done drawing in the Baltics. No more tiny states. It's over. So we can see those Polish tribes that are broken apart, but that probably almost happened when they immediately invaded into Poland when the Slavs migrated. That might have happened almost instantly, or it might have been a gradual process, or both at the same time in some areas. But I'm gonna show it like that. So we can see that Silesia has many smaller tribes that might have happened almost instantly in Silesia after they migrated in there. We can also see the smaller tribes such as Kuyavians and the Krakowians. I think they are pretty much fake because there was only a city, but they might have owned the territory around it, so we just gotta show it like that. Also, those two groups I forgot to mention are Kuyavians and Valeti, so there you have it. In 870, the king of Moravia invaded Poland and part of Silesia because his mission was to Christianize the pagans, but I don't think his Christian mission did anything because the Slavs didn't convert to Christianity, and soon after the Hungarians invaded his country and Moravian kingdom fell apart. So great job, I guess. That was the invasion of Silesia by the Moravians. Okay, let's now talk a bit more about the Polish tribes because now they are about to get more interesting and more organized, so we can see what is going on in there. We starting with the first guy in the dynasty, Piast. He consolidated area in his own tribe, not outside it. His son would start conquering the surrounding tribes, though, the Shemomis of Piast in probably 830s or 840s. He conquered the Kuyavians and Mazovians, and his son, Mieszko I, would conquer the, Vistulans, would conquer the Kuyavians in the north, and a bit more of Valetians, I think. Yes, he would conquer them as well, and he would convert the Poles to Catholicism and would send Christian missions. In his countries, there would be a great rebellion in his country over the paganism, over the religion, and he would also try to convert the Prussians to Catholicism, but that wouldn't work until the Teutonic Order would come in there and swoop them. Also, Poles in this time, by the end, throughout the next 50 years in the 10th century, would be conquering a lot of stuff. A lot of their neighbors, they would invade into the Holy Roman Empire and try to duke it out with the Germans, and they would win mostly when they were raiding only, of course, in the region of Brandenburg or stuff like that. They also, in 999, invaded into Bohemia and, were occupying and owning the part of Mazovia. Yeah, the same Mazovians that invaded Poland many years ago. Now we're under the Polish control. The same tribe, basically. Also, Bolesław would invade into the Kievan Rus, which were 4 times his size, and still would win. Yeah, he would sack Kiev, exactly, and the Russians or the Vikings would have to pay him to fuck off. So that's pretty funny that he doesn't get as much recognition as other Polish rulers, but, I guess that's it. In 1031, Bohemian Kingdom re-invaded Moravian marches and retaken the land that was, occupied by the Poles, or owned by Poles, because it's medieval times and owning worked very differently in those times. In 1034, that is the death of the King of Poland, that was Lambert or something like that. When I hear Lambert, I only think like Witcher 3 for some reason, but ignore that. His son was visiting with his mother, Germany or HRE at the time, and Poles had different ideas about their religion, so we have a pagan revolt in 1034 or 1031. There was a lot of these, let me tell you that. So Casimir hears about this, he goes back to his country, gathers the nobility on a battlefield, and loses, and flees to Germany again. And this happens 2 more times, until he finally, in 1038 I think, he takes back power. Damn, he was a terrible fucking tactician. I bet those fucking peasants just got bored of the revolt because there was nothing more to pillage. The churches were probably burnt to fucking crisp. And they were like, okay, we done the job, let's go home farming. It wasn't probably like that. It was funny to think that's how it ended. Here's another thing. That guy was so fucking unlucky that when he got to Poland, he got kidnapped by fucking Hungarians from all the fucking people, man. I'm crying while just reading this shit. So his nobles were like, I'm gonna head out, and they fucking broke the country apart. And the Czechs saw that the Poland their armies are dead, their king is gone, so it's literally non-nobilitum. Nobody rules there. So they fucking invade that shit, and they take half of fucking Poland, dog. In 1039, our boy Casimir actually got back to Poland and started ruling again because of German help. Some famous German 900 years later would help Poland, but in a very different way too. We are not going to talk about that, don't worry. By the way, in 1041, Casimir reinvaded his old domain, that is Mazovia, and actually won. Won that Mazovia became a tributary of, well, Poland once more, so they were forced to pay taxes. And this is fate worse than death. In the same year, Heinrich II invaded Bohemia for the, well, second time. Well, that's the pun. And won this time, because the first one didn't go well. His entire army got stuck and wiped. He's the, well, king of Germany. He's out of the map. But he invades, Bohemia. And he wins, and Bohemians are forced to give up some Polish lands except Silesia. And, well, they are now a vassal or tributary of the Germany, or HRE. Nothing much was happening, except in 1047 the Mazovia was integrated back into the Poland, because, well, the Polish king invaded them second time and killed everybody, so I guess they had no other choices. Oh yeah, and Danzig, or the Pomeranian Poland, was integrated back into Poland itself, because, well, they were helping the Mazovians in the fight, so, well, that's how it be sometimes. In 1055, German Caesar granted Silesia back to Poland because they helped him kill a bunch of Hungarians on his border. And I'm not making this up, this is factual. They just rolled up into Hungary, killed a bunch of Hungarians, left, and they were like, okay, Poland, thanks for your help, here's Silesia. I have to bring you sad news, but our boy Casimir dies in 1058, and we have to move on with our timeline, because damn, he had some story on him, goddamn. In 1078, Poland invaded Rus principalities at this time, because they broken apart, and, well, they invaded into Kiev. I don't remember what they actually did in there, but I know they won, and they got Cherven cities. Also, not long after, in 1085, Poland would lose Cherven cities back to the Rus principalities, so no more tax revenue from that place. In 1109, Czechs and Germans invaded Poland because, well, greed, and they wanted Silesia, so, well, they invaded. Problems started to appear when they got in Poland, and they were sieging down a singular city for like half a year, which is hilarious because it was probably made from wood. And then something funnier even happened. The king of Bohemia got fucking assassinated by one of his men. So the Bohemian army just turned back and went to the Czech lands, which is a bummer for the Germans that were still there. And they knew it's not gonna go their way without the Bohemians, so they tried to sue for the peace with the Poles. Poles said no, and they had to fight Poles on a field battle, and they lost. So now the Germans had to pay annual payment for what happened, and they had to go back to their country. In 1119, King of Poland decided that it's time to bring back Danzig or Pomerania into the lands of Poland, so he invaded and, well, won. He had to fight Prussians and Pomeranians at the same time, but somehow he did it. I don't know how, and I don't care. Let's move on. In 1121, Polish king achieved total victory over the pagans in Pomerania and made them their tributary, but also controlled some of the lands himself. In 1138, Poland fell apart because of Gavelkind, although the brothers still were kinda working together because some of them were too young to even rule, so they had to, pay tribute to the eldest brother who was controlling Silesia and the main lands of Poland. In 1063, another duchy was added to the Polish Gavelkind succession thing, and it was Silesia. Although, they still have to pay tribute to the crown that is Polish kingdom, so it still kinda exists in a form of kinda HRE, but it, exists. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Frederick Barbarossa invaded Poland. He had the same one that drowned in that river. In 1167, we have a few border changes, but that's about it. In 1177, we have a noble revolt and even more border gore happening. or well, just Poland being broken apart more. In 1181, Greater Poland got independent because, well, a brother of the High King in Poland decided to get his lands back in there. The lands that were controlled by his son, actually, not his brother, his son. He invaded his own son and he took his lands back, although that son was revolting before and he wasn't really looked kindly by others, but well, he got land at the end by the victorious father. So yeah, Poland is missing one province now. Also, at the same time, HRE invaded into Pomerania and started controlling the pagans or the people who were in there totally. There was no going back. It's gonna become German from now on for a very long time. 3 years later, the time passes and Mazovia decides that it's time to break from Poland entirely. An alliance is broken. So now we have only Silesia and the main crown lands in Poland. Year later, we have Danish king invading into Pomerania and taking the land for himself. In the upcoming years, we can see that the Rus principalities and Poland start pushing onto the Baltic tribes to start to colonize them or Christianize them or to make slaves or have more land. And thus, in 1194, the Jadwingians are completely destroyed and the last of them migrate into Prussia or Lithuania. I started to realize that in this video about history of Poland and quote-unquote Baltics, there is not much going on in Baltics. I think I should rename the video to Quick History of Poland and those that attack Baltic states. In 1201, another Gavelkind succession struck Poland and split the country apart even more. Although the crown lands still had, considerable power over those lands. In 1200, first the Novgorod Republic invaded into Estonian tribes and secured some land for themselves. And in 1208 or 1207, we have an arrival of the Livonian Knights. And they immediately started fighting against the Latigalians and Selonians. By 1211, they subdued Latigalians and started converting them to Christianity. In 1219, Kingdom of Denmark joined the Northern Crusades against the Estonians and claimed a bit of land for themselves, mainly the northern Estonia. Meanwhile, in Poland, the situation looked a bit better than last time, and they lost Danzig to the Danish. But that only happened for a short while, and they got it back, which after that, the Prussians invaded into Mazovia and started pillaging the area. As you can imagine, that move wasn't very popular amongst the Polish nobles and monarchs, so they decided to invade into the Prussian territory and kill a bunch of pagans. In 1224, the Livonian Order and the Kingdom of Denmark divided the Baltic tribes between them and, started Christianizing them. And when I mean Baltic, I mean Estonian, which are Finnic, not Baltic, but, you get the idea. Do you remember when I said that Poland is in better state now? Well, forget everything I said because it looks like this now. Then, the Poland, or Greater Poland that owns Poland, pretty much, decided to go to war with the Mazovia, or Mazovia decided to go with Greater Poland. So Silesia said, if you want my help, you have to give me land. So they gave him land, and in 1229 it looks like this. The same year, Prince of Silesia was kidnapped by the Mazovians, so he wasn't able to lead his armies and actually win or decide to stalemate the Mazovians in the north. So Mazovians had a pretty much free hand what to do in the southern lands in Poland. They tried to take Krakow, but they failed and instead started occupying the surrounding areas. And now we have Big Mazovia, and de facto territories of Poland are looking very thin. And yes, Poland lost Greater Poland as well. And at the same time, a small and certain insignificant Teutonic order settles in northern Mazovia. In 1230, the Livonian Order invades into the Semigalian territory and subjugates them. Meanwhile, the Danish and the Holy Roman Emperor had a little battle at the Bornhavet, and they lost. That is, the Danish lost. And all those lands have to come back to Pomerania and the northern Germany to HRE. Everything was going in a good direction until Poles said to themselves, what if we gonna fuck this thing even more? So they did, and in 1236 it looks like this. Yes, Poland doesn't exist anymore. But something else exists. The Duchy of Lithuania now exists. Under the Grand Duke of Mendog, I think his name was, I don't remember. And I am too lazy to check that up. Year later, Lithuania invaded into the Dark or Black Rus. That was the name of that place, don't ask me about it. Soon Lithuania and quote-unquote Poland will have a new neighbor on their border, who's right now busy rampaging throughout the Rus principalities. The year is 1240 and they are here. The Mongol Empire finally reached Polish and Hungarian borders, and their next targets are Buda and Krakow. First Mongol target was Lesser Poland and the sack of Sandomir by the Mongol forces. Somewhere at the end of the march, Mongols sacked Krakow and beat 2 Polish armies. Although Mongols had superior numbers, to be honest. Mongols suffered a small defeat that the Polish had near Ratibor, and at the same time, the king of Bohemia started mobilizing his troops and moving it into Silesia. The general, Ordu, decided to move into Breslau with his main forces and try to destroy the Polish army before it can connect with the Bohemian one. Finally, Polish and main Mongolian army met at the Battle of Legnitz. The battle commenced near a village called Volkstadt, and the Bohemian army was only a day of march away from the battle. The Polish army was destroyed, and Mongols quickly moved to the nearby city of Legnitz. The only remnant that the people saw in Legnitz of the Polish army was a head on a spear that belonged to the Prince of Silesia. Yet the city was saved because Mongols, that is the General Ordu, had a different ideas, that is to help his main general Batu Khan, helping in subjugating Hungary. As soon as the Mongols left, Poles went back into their squabbling over the land, and the Prince of Mazovia actually this time conquered Krakow. 2 big things actually happened in Livonia, which I forgot to mention, but here they are. First one being that the Livonian order now belongs to the Teutons, or is their subordinate. And this is because they got ambushed by a bunch of revolting pagans. So now they are no longer as strong as they were, and the Pope decided that it will be better if they will be subordinate to the Teutonic order. The second big thing is a battle at the Lake Peipus, which was led by the main Teutonic army and the leftovers of the Livonian order, which they lost, and now the Prussians decided to revolt inside the Teutonic territory. In 1248, Mazovia fell apart to the Gavelkind, just like Poland did many years before. Also, Silesia was broken into 3 parts, but I'm not gonna show it for simplicity. In 1258, Volhynian and Mongolian armies decided to invade into Lithuania, burning through the countryside. Mongolian army also returned in 1260 to Lesser Poland to burn down countryside. Also, they managed to capture Krakow and loot it. Meanwhile, in the north, the last bastions of paganism were conquered by the Livonians, of course except Lithuania. A lot was going on, but I'm gonna just jump through it. By 1290s, half of Silesia fallen into Holy Roman Empire, and the Prussian tribes were finally destroyed and subjugated by the Teutonic Order. In 1291, we have Bohemian army invading into Krakow and, well, successfully taking it. After conquering entire Lesser Poland 2 years later, they finally stopped. In 1294, Prince of Danzig died, and thus his lands landed in Greater Poland, in the hands of a man called Przemysl, who a year later was coronated as King of Poland by the Bishop of Danzig. Poland had to wait for another king 219 years. All I have to say is skill issue for destroying your country like that. And if you think that's probably the end of the story, you know, now the Poles gonna get it straight up, they're gonna reconquer Krakow, they're gonna form again the great Polish kingdom. No, the guy who was coronated a king dies by being stabbed by a spear. He has no children except a daughter. His kingdom is gobbled, and in 301, Bohemia conquers entire Poland. Don't worry, the Czechs will lose their land as quickly as they gained it. I think they lost it in 1306 or 1305. Then Poles started fighting each other, and finally in 1320, Vladislav finally reunited Poland and was coronated as King of the Poles. In 1323, Duke Gediminas started invading into the Rus territories, and well, he conquered 2 provinces. Even that Lithuania was pagan and Poland was, well, Christian, they still understood that they have a common enemy, that is the Teutonic Order, so they declared an alliance. And I'm sorry to say, but I have to end the video here. It's too long, and trust me, I simplified it as much as I could because there's a lot of things I didn't talk about. There is a lot of Game of Thrones during the, well, collapse of Poland. A lot of murdering, kidnapping, and air word I cannot say on YouTube because my video will get deleted. Also, maybe in future I want to talk about the Prussian uprising because it was pretty interesting and it's well documented, so why not? Okay, you should subscribe to the channel, like this stupid ass video, share it. Meanwhile, I'm gonna shoot myself in the skull and destroy my W-Riz like Kurt Cobain. Goodbye.